Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Rudy G Bets Inside the Lines podcast, Season 3, Episode 1. We are back for the NFL start of the season. Myself joined alongside my co-hosts Ryan and David once again. It's really good to be back. I'm looking forward to the season. How about you guys? Dave, what are you thinking, man? How have you been?
Good. Yeah, it's certainly been a while since the Super Bowl. Just excited to get college football back this weekend. But like you said, the majority of the show is going to be NFL. So excited to talk some NFL, divisions and player props and things of that nature. But just excited to be back.
Yeah, the season didn't exactly end the way I wanted it to, but nonetheless, I was really thrilled with how the Eagles did last year. Looking forward to another good year. And it's just crazy how fast the summer goes, and we're already talking about football again, but excited to get into it.
Yeah, for sure. Exciting times on the horizon starting the 7th with the Lions and the Chiefs. But with that, guys, we'll get right into our division picks in order. I'll go first here, and then Dave, you could go, and then Ryan. So my divisions are as followed. The NFC North, I have the Lions in first, the Vikings second, the Packers third, and the Bears last. The NFC South, I have the Panthers first, the Saints second, the Falcons third, and the Bucks last. NFC East, I have the Eagles, then the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Commanders, or whatever they're going by these days. You never know. The NFC West, we have the Seahawks at 1, the Niners at 2, the Rams at 3, and the Cardinals at 4. The AFC North, I have the Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers, and then the Browns. The AFC South, I have Jacksonville, Tennessee, Houston, and then the Colts. AFC East, I have the Dolphins, the Bills, the Jets, and then the Patriots. And lastly, the AFC West, Chiefs, Chargers, Denver, and the Raiders. So those are my divisions for the 2023-2024 season. Dave, how about you? Any differences there?
I definitely have some differences. I heard some spicy ones in there, which I'm sure we'll get into when we dive into a little bit more of the spread or the futures on those. But I'll just go in order of my standings. I'll start in the AFC. So AFC East, I have the Bills, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Pats. Jump over to the South, I have Jacksonville, Tennessee, Indianapolis, and then Houston. The AFC North, I have Cincy. Then I have the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Browns. And in the AFC West, I have the Chiefs, then the Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders finishing in last. Then we'll jump over to the NFC. NFC East, I have the Eagles, then the Cowboys, the Giants, and then the Commanders. I'm pretty sure all of us will have that pretty chalk through. The NFC South, I have the Saints, the Falcons, the Bucks, and I'm sorry, Rudy, I have the Panthers in last. That O-line scared me in the preseason. I know it was probably backups, but jumping over to the NFC North, I have the Lions, the Packers, the Bears, and the Vikings in last. It's probably my hottest take so far. Whoa. And then in the NFC West, I have the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Cardinals. So few minor differences in there, like I was saying about you, one or two hot takes, but just really quick run through the divisions.
Yeah, I've noticed quite a few similarities between the two of you guys. I'll run through them now. Starting with the NFC East, it's going to be the same thing Dave and Rudy said. The Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, then Commanders. In the South, I'm going to go with Rudy's Panthers because I really don't know. It's a crapshoot in that division. I'll go Panthers, Saints, Falcons, then Bucks. In the North, I got the Vikings, Packers, Lions, then Bears. In the West, I have the Seahawks, like Rudy, the 49ers, the Rams, and then the Cardinals. Jumping over to the AFC in the North, I got the Bengals, Ravens, Steelers, then Browns. In the West, I have the Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos. In the East, I have the Bills, the Dolphins, Jets, and Pats. And in the South, I have the Jags, Titans, Texans, and Colts. So a couple differences in there, a couple interesting division winners. But yeah, I think we'll get into that stuff now more in detail.
Yeah, so basically I'll keep the the division winner bets short. I mean, I have a couple teams that I think have really good value that, put it this way, aren't the favorites of the division, like the Panthers, Seattle, and Miami. Those are like my three division winners that I think aren't the favorites, or at least provide like over 2-1 odds. So check out the books. I'm not going to rant and rave about all the things. I mean, you guys know what to do. So yeah, those are my three non-favorite division winners. I think Carolina and Miami have the third best odds in their division, and then the Seahawks second, obviously. So that's kind of it for me on the divisions. How about you guys?
Yeah, I'll mix in on the divisions here. So my first place winners in all the divisions were pretty chalk. So I don't want to give out any of those picks. Certainly, if you really like a heavy favorite, it'll be, a pretty easy pick there. But I wanted to jump on two odds for second place that I saw at plus money. So I like the Titans at plus 150. And then the Falcons, I really love this in the NFC South, plus 230 to finish second. That division, like Ryan said, is wide open. I have the Saints winning it, but I can certainly see, besides really the Bucks, any of those four teams competing. I don't think it's going to take very many wins. Why I like the Falcons to finish second is because one of the best O-lines in football. You get the second year under Ritter. He's not going to have to do much. And if Bijan Robinson is good as everyone's saying he is behind that offensive line, they're trying to shape together a decent defense. I like them plus 230 to finish second. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, so I have two that I want to touch on. I like this. This is a chalky one, but I like the Jags at minus 155. The Titans, Colts, and Texans, I feel like, are all just awful. The Colts and Texans certainly are. The Titans, they don't really inspire much confidence for me. Derrick Henry's really old. And a lot of the pieces on that team, Traylon Burks, not really interested in him. And Tannehill's kind of older. And, obviously they drafted Will Levis and they had that whole I can't even think of it. I'm blanking on who did they draft that Dave wanted on the Steelers?
Malik Willis.
Willis.
Did something just happen with him? I don't even know.
Think so.
No?
Not to my knowledge.
Anyways, getting off topic, but yeah, those teams are all pretty terrible. So Jacksonville's the clear favorite, in my opinion. They finished the season really hot last year. They won 6 of their last 7. They obviously had that comeback playoff win. And, it's another year in Doug Peterson's offense for Trevor Lawrence, another year for him to grow. And they got some good young players on that team. I think they're the play there. And then my long shot kind of division winner is the Seahawks at plus 230. The Rams and Cardinals certainly aren't going to win this division, so it's either going to be the 49ers or the Seahawks. And I don't believe in the 49ers. Brock Purdy, he was a flash in the pan, I feel like, last year. Last pick in the draft, had a good story, but, then he had Tommy John surgery, obviously the injury in the NFC Championship game. Don't think he's going to be what he was last year. Kittle's getting old. Debo is kind of getting old. He's not that old, but he's had a lot of seasons under his belt now, a lot of wear and tear. You got Jackson Smith and Jigba added to the offense, Zach Charbonnet on Seattle. So feel like they have a chance for plus 230. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would want to lay minus 200 on the 49ers to win the division. I mean, yeah, are they the rightful favorites? Sure, but at minus 200, I don't really want anything to do with that because it feels like a couple injuries or anything along the offensive line, and that team could potentially spiral faster than people are expecting. So now we will get into our favorite win totals for the season ahead. And I put down 3 of them. So started out with New England. Under 7.5 wins, minus 140 on DraftKings as of today or last night. I forget when I started these notes, but Yeah, the Patriots under 7.5. They play in the second toughest division in football, in my opinion. And they're clearly the worst of the 4 teams. The Jets, by all accounts, should be Rodgers and not Zach Wilson and Mike White. They also have added some key pieces like Dalvin Cook and others. Miami looks to be improved as long as Tua stays healthy. I think they had a really good offseason, and I think their defensive coordinator, I'm blanking on Vic Fangio should definitely have the defense playing better. I know Jalen Ramsey is out for like half the season, something like that, but and then the Bills obviously are what the Bills are. They should be fine this year. So yeah, the worst team in the second hardest division, and the Patriots virtually have like 0 skill position players. Mac Jones does not impress me whatsoever. I have no idea who they're going to give the ball to. I mean, I know they have Juju, who's whatever in my opinion, and they added Zeke to the running back room, which is just like a cast of characters. I don't know. I don't believe in New England at all. They're going to have to win super low scoring, ugly games. So 7.5 under for New England. My second one, Seahawks over 9.5 wins plus 130. I think if they win the division, they'll certainly get there. And even if not, the NFC is obviously the weaker conference. I think the Seahawks can potentially, like I said, take that division. If you want a little extra, you could take them for the division. And my last one that I want to share is the Raiders under 6.5 wins, minus 130 on DraftKings. So same kind of logic as the Patriots, the worst team in a pretty good division otherwise. Who knows with Denver, but I still can't see the Raiders not being the worst team in that division. Their defense is still not very good. Their offensive line is not good. They're going to have to rely on Jimmy Garoppolo coming off injury, Devontae Adams, and Josh Jacobs. And I'm not really convinced that Josh Jacobs is going to have another 1,600-yard year or whatever he had last year out of the blue. I mean, I've had him in fantasy the last couple of years, not last year because I avoided him with 2 hands because he was so touchdown dependent. He just did not rack up yards. But the worst team in an otherwise good division, playing the Chiefs and the Chargers twice a year. I mean, you could realistically go 0-4 there. I could see a world where the Raiders win like one division game, and it might be a game at the end of the season that doesn't matter. So a team that I think is definitely going to be bottom 5 in the league, I have a hard time seeing this team get 7 wins. So those are my 3 win totals that I wanted to share with you guys. Dave, how about you?
Yeah, I'll jump right into it and kind of explain my Vikings placing in the NFC North. So if you guys will recall back a few minutes ago, I had them finishing last in that division. One of my win total bets, I like them under 7.5 wins at plus 160. The Vikings have Justin Jefferson. I understand that, best wide receiver in the league, and he's going to get his all season. But I think that plays into why I'm so down on the Vikings is they're going to have such a bad defense this year. They were pretty terrible last year, and they had some key veterans depart. So they're going to be needing to score 28, 35, maybe sometimes 40 points to win games with how bad their defense is going to be. I think Justin Jefferson, like I said, is going to get his. Kirk Cousins is serviceable. But outside of him, I mean, you let go of Dalvin Cook, who I know is aging. I know the NFL has their view on how to handle running backs as they age. But what if Alexander Madison can't carry the load? You know, he hasn't really shown anything outside of a backup role. I mean, your other weapons are TJ Hawkinson and a rookie wide receiver in Jordan Addison, who I think will be good, but I don't think he's going to light the world on fire the first few weeks. So I'm just worried about how much their offense is going to need to score and having to really produce that just with Justin Jefferson mainly. And Kirk Cousins, like I mentioned before, is serviceable. I don't know if you guys watched that quarterback series on Netflix. He's one tough son of a bitch. Like, he got the shit kicked out of him all last year. But what happens if he takes a huge hit with that bad offensive line and he misses some games? I mean, I just think there's a couple things with the Vikings that should they not go absolutely perfectly on offense, they just don't have the defense to pick up the slack. So I like them under 7.5 wins at plus 160. And then my other one, I'm going to stay in that same division with the Packers. I have them finishing second. I like them over 8.5 wins at plus 165. I view the Packers in the NFC kind of like how people view the Steelers. Like, they're a pretty stable franchise. They're never really at the top of the league, but they're also never at the bottom of the league. And I I don't want to say I'm a believer in Jordan Love, but Aaron Rodgers, if you look back, everyone's freaking out that he left and what are the Packers going to do? He didn't play well last season. Like, he didn't play well at all. So in limited action in that Eagles game, Jordan Love came in, looked pretty good. I think he's a lot more mobile. I think they can build an offense around Jordan Love because Aaron Rodgers was, very temperamental and, what he expected and what the plays he liked and the calls and reads he liked. So I think they'll be able to build a safe offense around Jordan Love. And in that division, I mean, with the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings, I think they're all middle of the road NFL teams. So I can see them chunking up a few wins in the division and getting over 8.5 at plus 165.
Yeah, to tail right off you there, Dave. I had the Packers written down. I have over 7.5 wins. I got it at like minus 110 on DraftKings. You're going a little bit riskier there for 8.5, but I like it. So I kind of had some of the same thoughts. Jordan Love, he might actually be good. He's looked pretty good in the preseason so far. There's no Aaron Rodgers drama, which I think is very helpful for that whole organization. Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson are both a year older. Christian Watson will probably definitely take another step forward, and Romeo Doubs probably can only get better. Their defense wasn't bad last year. I mean, if you go back and look at points allowed, they were kind of middle of the pack. So it was just, feel like Aaron Rodgers kind of holding them down last year. So 8 wins, I think they could get to that. And the other one I have written down is the Broncos, under 8.5 wins. Most of you have probably heard about the whole Sean Payton thing where he was throwing
Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah, under the bus, like saying, "Oh, if we're bad,"
I know where you were going immediately.
He screwed it up so badly that, I guess maybe he's thinking his team isn't going to be so good and he doesn't want the blame if they're not good. So there's already another, I think, a hamstring injury to Jerry Jeudy. Tim Patrick's out again. One of their cornerbacks is hurt. Russell Wilson might just be washed. I think he's cooked. If they get off to a bad start, again, the defense might quit on them like they did at the end of last year. And it's a tough division. The Raiders aren't going to be great, I don't think, but the Chargers, I feel like, are going to be better this year. And obviously the Chiefs are good every year. So, yeah, I'm not really buying any kind of Broncos resurgence.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. So now we will go on to player markets, player futures, and our awards for the season. So I actually have a lot written down here for you guys, just kind of picking off things that stood out and had value to me. So, and I'll make a little case for each one. So for MVP, I wrote down Trevor Lawrence. The Jaguars, they don't have a hard schedule. They play in the second easiest division in football, the easiest in the AFC. Their defense is probably not going to be that great. So there's definitely shootout potential, especially when they start playing better teams. And I think if Trevor Lawrence takes a step up and the Jaguars win the division, and maybe through the default of like their bad division and the AFC other teams like kind of beating each other up within the division, who knows, maybe the Jaguars get like a 1 or 2 seed and Trevor Lawrence has a big year. So plus 1,600 on FanDuel. I like Trevor Lawrence at those odds to win MVP. So another one, they had 30-plus touchdown thrower markets also on FanDuel. Kirk Cousins, 30-plus touchdowns. Last year, he had 29. This year, like Dave touched on, the Vikings coming in last. Their defense, if you look at their depth chart, I think this defense might somehow be worse than last year. Like, we all watch a ton of football. We all play fantasy football. I mean, I'm looking at rosters and stuff all the time. I'm not going to lie. I don't know who a lot of these guys are that are starting on the Minnesota defense outside of like some draft picks and Danielle Hunter. Their defense is a bunch of literal nobodies. So with that logic, Kirk Cousins is going to be after airing the ball out. I think they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. Hawkinson, his first full year in Minnesota now. Dalvin Cook's gone. So I think that'll open up the passing game more. And Jordan Addison, I love KJ Osborne as a third option. So yeah, I think Minnesota definitely could get in some shootouts. Cousins, like I said, had 29 last year. I think the defense has potential to even be worse. So asking him to throw one more touchdown, I don't think that's bad at all at plus 100. And then also Kirk Cousins' most passing yards, plus 1,400. Basically the same exact reasons. Some garbage time come from behind, getting in shootouts, 14-1 for old Kirk, most passing yards. 10 rushing touchdowns for Tony Pollard is plus 220 on FanDuel. And I think, one, the Cowboys are going to be good. Number two, no more Zeke, who had a bulk of the work share until they kind of figured out that he's definitely washed, and then Pollard came along. But even in that lessened workload, Pollard still had 9 rushing touchdowns last year. They really don't have anyone behind him. I know people are like kind of getting excited about that little Deuce Vaughn, but I really don't think he's going to cut that much into Tony Pollard's work share. And also with Dak throwing like 15 interceptions or whatever it was, something crazy like that last year, I think Pollard's fresh, and they're going to definitely rely on him. So 10 rushing touchdowns when he had 9 last year and like 60-40 deficit to Zeke, plus 220. This one I absolutely love. I bet this one this afternoon because I couldn't believe the odds. Sam Howell, most interceptions, plus 2,000. I have no idea how it's plus 2,000 because there's no one behind him in Washington. They're going to let him ride it out. They're probably going to be the worst team. They're probably going to be one of the worst teams in the league. So it's not like I have to worry about him getting benched for, I don't even know who the backup is. And they're going to be throwing the ball. What?
Isn't it Jacoby Brissett?
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
He
Yeah,
could potentially get benched.
I highly doubt it. He's a 5th round pick. They have to see what they got. I can't imagine they have expectations really in Washington with the Eagles and the Cowboys in that division. Plus 2,000 for Sam Howell, who was a 5th round pick, and I just don't even really think the guy's an NFL quarterback, and I think he's going to ride it out. They're going to let him see what he has. So plus 2,000, Sam Howell, most interceptions. I love that one. Another one, Christian McCaffrey, Offensive Player of the Year, plus 1,400. He's going to be asked to do a lot this year with a full season of Brock Purdy / Sam Darnold, however you want to go. And if they do, I know me and Ryan picked the Seahawks, but if the 49ers do win the division, which is very possible, he's going to have to be a big part because I cannot see Brock Purdy or Sam Darnold having such a good season that they're like the star of the team and stuff. Christian McCaffrey will be the catalyst of that offense if they're a 1 or a 2 seed. So 14-1, I like that. And then my last one for the player future markets. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Devon Witherspoon, plus 1,100 for the Seahawks. The Seahawks, and this fits into the narrative, if they are good, win the division, and also with Tariq Woolen having a great rookie season last year, like tied for the lead in picks or close to that, teams are going to know now, like he's not a rookie anymore. Okay, we have to throw at someone. Devon Witherspoon, who was the 5th overall pick, I'm sure he's going to get a lot of targets thrown his way. So if he has a good season, leads the rookie class in interceptions, I think a lot of people are looking at like Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. But at 11-1, I like Devon Witherspoon to have potentially a season like Tariq Woolen. So a lot of plus money for you guys, but I think there are some good ones in there. So those are my player market futures. Dave, how about you?
I'll jump in because we have a few that match, Rudy. So I'll go over those first. In terms of MVP, like again with the division winners, if you want to bet chalk, Allen, Mahomes, maybe even someone like that, I'm not gonna hate you for it. But my thought is I want to get really good odds on some plus money on some longer shots. And my formula was kind of like Rudy, someone who's maybe not expected to light the league on fire or maybe not even win their division. But if everything falls their way, they're the quarterback of the team and the MVP is the quarterback award. So I had Trevor Lawrence written down as well. The other 2 names I had at plus money were Justin Herbert and Justin Fields. Flashy stat guys. So if Justin Herbert and they end up ousting the Chiefs for that division and Herbert throws 40 plus touchdowns, maybe tries to touch 50, it's going to be hard to see him not getting that award should they again finish ahead of the Chiefs and Mahomes. And then Justin Fields, I might be jumping the gun here, but if you see a season like his of Lamar's MVP season where he figures it out through the air, he's able to be proficient through the air, have some longer touchdowns, and still add that rushing ability. And they win that division. Again, it's not a stacked division, but not many people are expecting much out of the Bears. So I think if you see a season like that, much like when Lamar won MVP, that's at plus 2,000. So those are some longer shot MVPs. 3+ money player props. I also have Tony Pollard. I was a little less risky, over 8.5 touchdowns at plus 120 for a lot of the same reasons Rudy mentioned. And then my other two, Chris Olave over 5.5 receiving touchdowns plus 100. I like that one because they are getting Derek Carr, who's really efficient deep ball thrower, and Chris Olave in his rookie year had one of the highest deep ball target rates in the NFL. He excels at catching the deep ball. Derek Carr excels at throwing the deep ball. He'll be their number one wide receiver. Derek Carr hyper targets is number one, like Devontae Adams last year. I know Michael Thomas is there, but I think 5.5 is a pretty low bar for an ascending player like Olave. And then this one, I think, is my favorite player prop, Darren Waller, over 4.5 receiving touchdowns. He is the only target for the Giants. I know they have Wan'Dale Robinson, Sterling Shepard, a bunch of like middling slot wide receivers. And reports are that they can't stop targeting him out of camp. Daniel Jones loves him. So over 4.5 receiving touchdowns for Waller at plus 105. I really like that one.
Yeah, I like that Darren Waller one as well, Dave. You're right. They don't really have any other places. Daniel Jones doesn't really have anyone else to throw to there. So my long shot is I didn't do an MVP. I did an offensive rookie of the year, and I like Zay Flowers at plus 1,700 on DraftKings. We're talking about the Ravens a little bit, and Zay Flowers really doesn't have much competition there at wide receiver. You got Rashad Bateman, you got Odell Beckham, neither of which I think are going to have good seasons. He's flashed so far in the preseason. I think he'll get a lot of targets. Like I mentioned, there's really no one else to throw to. You have Mark Andrews, but he's already banged up a little bit. I think he's missed practice a couple days in a row here. So, I think it's worth a shot at plus 1,700. In terms of player props, I have Justin Herbert over 29.5 pass touchdowns. He had 31 in his rookie year, and he had 38 in 2021 before dropping down to 25 last year. Kind of everything went wrong last year. He had that rib injury, I believe it was, in week 2. There were injuries at wide receiver, like there always seems to be with the Chargers. But don't forget, they also took Quentin Johnston in the first round, wide receiver, with the 21st pick. So I feel like he'll be healthy this year. I think he'll, they always have to throw in that division to keep up with the Chiefs and the other offenses. So, I love that bet, over 29.5 passing touchdowns. And another one I have written down is Derrick Henry, under 9.5 rushing touchdowns. Now, he has not had under that number in, I believe it's been 5 seasons, but this is his 8th season. I mean, the dude is really old. He had a ton of wear and tear on his body. The Titans aren't going to be good, so I don't think they're going to have a ton of red zone opportunities. And they also took Tajay Spears in the 3rd round this year, from the running back from Tulane. So I think they'll look to mix him in a little bit more. And it's mostly just an overall play on Derrick Henry's age and the wear and tear you have as a running back. I think the number is a little bit too high, and it's also, it goes to tell you something that they set the number that low, and it's still minus 110 on both sides, even though I said he hasn't had under that number in like 5 straight years. So the odds makers setting the line that low tells you something, and I like that number.
Okay. So now we are going to do our surprise teams for the year. I told the guys one good surprise, one bad surprise. So I will start out again. Flip my notes over here. So my good surprise team is, My good surprise team is none other than these guys right here on my hat, the Carolina Panthers. Their win total is set at 7.5. I think this team can potentially even get as high as a 10-7 season. There's a lot of reasons why. We all know this is the worst division in football. So I think that makes it a lot easier on Bryce Young and a new staff. Secondly, the Bucs with Baker Mayfield are just auto. No, they don't really have a chance in hell, in my opinion, to win the division. Their offensive line is cooked now, especially with Ryan Jensen done for the year. Their all-star Pro Bowl center. So, and then you got Atlanta and you got the Saints. Desmond Ridder, do I need to say more? I'm sorry, there is no way in hell you can convince me that Desmond Ridder is going to win a division, even if it's this bad. I know they have Bijan Robinson. I know they have this good offensive line. I know they invested in free agents on defense, but like 90% of the guys that they got are like, old enough to be my grandfather, besides Jesse Bates. And like, at some point, you're going to have to make Desmond Ridder throw the football. I just don't think teams are going to know, like, just load up the box against Atlanta and stop Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson and make a third or fourth round, basically an extension of his rookie year, Desmond Ridder, who in my opinion is not even an NFL quarterback, at least not a starting one, beat you. And then as far as the Saints go, Dennis Allen is, in my opinion, one of the worst coaches in the NFL. It didn't go well when he was with the Oakland Raiders like 10 years ago or however long ago it was. And his tenure with the Saints has not got off to a good start either. Derek Carr, this is now his 5th new offense that he's in. Every year he set a career low for a first year in his offense in like basically every statistical category. The Saints are getting older. Michael Thomas has not played a full year since 2019. So I don't know what people are expecting him. A guy that was already a slow receiver to begin with, I don't think is just like going to magically start tearing it up all of a sudden. And Alvin Kamara is out for the first couple games. I know they got Jamal Williams, who magically had 20 touchdowns last year. I don't think that's happening again. And outside of Chris Olave and an beat up Michael Thomas, I don't really think they have very much going for the Saints team. They lost like 3 or 4 defensive linemen in free agency. Their best defensive players basically are Demario Davis, who's like 34 years old, and Cam Jordan, who's like 35 or something like that. I just don't see it. And maybe I'm being overly optimistic about Carolina, like as a default pick, but I have to go with Carolina as my surprise team, especially because everyone is picking Atlanta as their new Lions of 2023. And the people that don't like Atlanta are picking the Saints just because of Derek Carr, and I don't see it. And then my bad surprise or my underachiever, and I'll preface it, I don't think they're going to be bad, like they're going to be like a bottom 5 or 10 team, but basically a team that I think is going to go under their win total and not make the playoffs, the New York Jets. I am not in on the Jets this year. I know on paper they have like a Hall of Fame roster. Everything seems to be going well. But Aaron Rodgers just came off his career worst season, essentially, in like all the categories. Now he's going to the Jets. I know it's a familiar system with his buddy Hackett, and they have a lot of good skill players, especially with getting Dalvin Cook. The defense on paper has a lot of good players, but the offensive line is very, very shaky at best. And if that offensive line is not keeping Aaron Rodgers upright, he's 40 years old. I don't think it's going to go well. They have a brutal first 8 games to start the season. I think there's a real chance they're 3-5, and they got to play Buffalo and Miami. So they have to top them, and I just don't see that happening. And the hype for the Jets is just over the moon, and I do not agree at all. The Jets is my underachiever.
I'll hop in after you, Rudy. So I touched on a little bit with my win totals, but my surprise bad team is the Minnesota Vikings. I won't go into it too much more, just refer to the points I had mentioned earlier. But again, my main thinking there is I think they're a house of cards that needs everything to go perfect for them to be like a middle of the road team. I think if everything goes great for them, they're like challenging for a wild card spot. So, like I said, you throw in a Kirk Cousins injury with the bad O line, that defense is going to be terrible. If the offense doesn't perform outside of Justin Jefferson, I just think there's a lot of things that can go wrong for the Vikings that I already touched on. And I'm going to go the same way as Rudy. I don't want everyone to think that we're all taking our teams here to be a surprise good team. Maybe it's beginning of season optimism, but I have a lot of numbers and things to kind of support this. So I think the Steelers are going to be a surprise good team. They'll be featured in my best bet. I have them finishing second in the division. And then here's just my thinking behind here. And again, it's kind of like what Rudy's saying. I don't expect them to win the division or oust the Bengals, but I expect them to be very good and challenge the Bengals for that top spot. And my main thing is they have a very easy schedule. Their division's tough, but I'm going to read you off some non-divisional games the Steelers will have this year. They get to play the Raiders, they get to play the Texans, they get to play the Rams, they get to play the Cardinals, and they get to play the Colts. So those are 5 suspected really bad teams. And then you throw in the Packers and the Titans, which one of those 2 teams has a chance to also underperform this season. So those are just like 5 to 6 games where like they should be autopilot wins. The Steelers played awful at the beginning of last year. They started 2-6 and they finished 7-2. So they finished the season really well. Pickett, he didn't play unbelievable, but he learned the offense. He was, sustainable in that back half, and the team learned how to win close games. And I know it's preseason, but the first team offense has looked great. So I am expecting big things out of the Steelers. Again, I'm not, if everything goes right for them, maybe they're challenging the Bengals down the stretch. But again, I took a look at their schedule, and again, people are probably sick of hearing it, especially non-Steelers fans, but they just don't go under 500. So if in a season last year where you brought in a rookie quarterback, played him half the year, started 2-6, didn't have TJ Watt for half the year, and you still finished 9-8, I feel like a lot of things can go right or just not go terribly like they did last year. And they have a good chance to be a surprisingly good team above expectations. So those are my 2.
Dave, are you happy the Steelers took Kenny Pickett instead of Malik Willis?
Yeah, I guess I was going to have to address that one way or another. If you guys remember back a couple of seasons ago at the draft show, I was pounding the table for Malik Willis. I did not want Kenny Pickett. And I was so mad when they picked Pickett. And I told Rudy and Ryan, I'm like, well, I guess if I'm proven wrong, it'll end up being like a good thing because that'll mean they're, a competitive team. So I'm not like some Steelers fans like, oh my God, he's the second coming. Like he's shown a lot of good steps in the preseason, played well down the stretch. But like I said, with that schedule and with the skill players they have around him, he has to perform this season. Like I think it'll be a big year for him, but I was certainly wrong comping him and Malik Willis. I got that one wrong.
I just had to buzz you on that one. Getting into my teams though, one of them Rudy already touched on, the Jets. I totally agree with a lot of what Rudy had to say, but just to kind of add some other points, Aaron Rodgers is 39 years old now. It's very possible that like Peyton Manning, at one point he's just kind of fallen off a cliff. Yes, they got Dalvin Cook, but his yards per carry the past 3 years have been consistently going down. It went from 5 to 4.7, and last year was 4.4. So I think clearly he's starting to take a step back with his age. Breece Hall, too, the other running back, tore his ACL last year. Not a great injury to come back from. Just also like to fade the public generally on this. I think the public's all over them, and they're in a tough division. With the Bills and the Dolphins, I think those are 2 very good teams. So, don't like the Jets. And a surprise good team, I mean, they're always average, but I'm going to go with the Chargers. Kind of touched on Herbert a little bit, but
You have them winning the division, right?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay.
One of the reasons why is Mahomes got banged up a couple times last year, and he didn't miss any significant time, but, he limped off the field in 2 playoff games, obviously including the Super Bowl. So, the more he runs, he could get banged up. We'll see what happens there. If he does, I think the Chargers are going to win that division. I think Justin Herbert's going to have a bounce back season. If Brandon Staley doesn't get in the way too much, their offense is going to be really good. Their defense is always a little bit of a question mark, but we'll see. I think they're worth a shot to win the division and just to go over their win total and everything like that. So they even made the playoffs last year with all the the injuries and whatnot that they had. So we'll see.
All right, so now time for the fun part. I can't remember if anyone. Pretty sure I said take the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. I guess they didn't or make it. I'm not sure, but anyway, our Super Bowl predictions, our actual pick, and then any long shots we want to suggest. So my actual matchup prediction. I should have got the odds on this, but someone can if you're listening to this and want to take this. My actual Super Bowl prediction is the Eagles versus the Bengals. So I know there's like the losers don't make it back and blah, 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 but it's actually been happening. The Chiefs just did it last year, came back to beat the Eagles, and then the Patriots made it back when they they beat the Falcons, and then they came back, or they lost to the Eagles, and then they played the Rams. I think that's what it was, and then they won the next year. So I have the Eagles, and then I have the Bengals. Maybe it's just my perception of things, but I think this might be time the Bengals get back. Like, you have the Jets who were getting, like I said, I'm not going to go into it, but way out of hand with the popularity. And then the Chiefs are always there. You have the Bills in the mix, Miami, the Chargers. I think the Bengals are kind of falling a little bit out of favor. And I think as long as, Joe Burrow stays healthy, I think it's going to be hard for this team not to be good. And I think it's going to be hard for this team not to make the playoffs as long as number 9 stays healthy. So give me the Bengals and the Eagles as my Super Bowl matchup. And then my long shot bet for the Super Bowl is the Jacksonville Jaguars, plus 3,000. Like I said, easy division. Like I think I said for Lawrence for MVP, easy division. Everyone else beats up on each other. The Jaguars get a 1 or 2 seed. Maybe one of these teams that are in the top 5 or 6 with a tough division, knock each other out, and Jacksonville's left with a home playoff game playing, someone who had an upset. So I don't know. I think there's worse bets you can make than plus 3,000 for the Jaguars. It's possible. So kind of like the Bengals from a couple of years ago. I know they lost, but no one saw that coming. So maybe the Jaguars take one more leap forward. Gabe, how about you?
Yeah, I will. I want to start by saying I want to piggyback on something I heard from Rudy. So I am not picking the Eagles to make the Super Bowl because of something he mentioned, that like loser Super Bowl stat. And I want to say, I think the Eagles have the most complete team in the NFC, but I think there's something behind like getting back to the Super Bowl. The 2018 Patriots did do it, like you said, Rudy, but the Chiefs, they lost to the Bengals, and then the Bengals lost to the Rams. So the Chiefs technically didn't get back after losing.
Yeah. That's right. My fault.
So it was 2018 for the Patriots, and the last time before that was 91 through 93, the Bills. When they kept losing all those Super Bowls, they kept getting back. Anyhow, I am kind of a believer in that stat, and I do want to say, I think the Eagles are the most complete team in the NFC, but for the reason that they had that long run last year and didn't get it done, I'm fading them a little there. So my actual prediction is going to be the Bills and the 49ers. I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying about the 49ers, like Brock Purdy. They're going to have to manufacture him there with the players around him and Shanahan. I think they can do that. I think if it's not the Eagles in the NFC, it's the 49ers. This year is probably going to shape up a lot like last year, where the AFC is loaded and it's a murderer's row. And the NFC, I think 2 teams are going to coast to the NFC Championship game, and then it's going to be a really good NFC Championship. I don't think the NFC is that deep. My thought on the Bills is, I don't mean to cross sports here, but I was thinking about the Bills, and it reminded me a lot of my 2018 Capitals when they won the Stanley Cup. The years before, everyone was picking them. It's going to be the Bills. It's going to be those. Last year, I think they had a stat where like all analysts between ESPN and NFL Network, it was like 1% picked the Bills to represent the AFC. I saw that somewhere on Twitter. It was insane. Everyone was picking them last year, and they didn't get it done. no one is talking about the Bills because the hype around the Jets and Rodgers, Mahomes, you have some other exciting young AFC teams. So I think that's going to actually help the Bills, kind of not lower expectations, but not the spotlight right on them. So I like Bills versus 49ers, and I have the Bills getting it done. So you Bills fans can circle the wagons and celebrate if I'm right. And then my long shot, I have the same
Break
exact
some tables.
I have the same exact long shot as Rudy, plus 3,000, the Jags. Same thinking. I compared them a lot, like Rudy's saying, to the Bengals team that made a run. If the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills, they all beat up on each other and the Jags have an easier time with their division, can get a higher seed, get a couple home playoff games. And let's remember, like Trevor Lawrence, besides that first year with Urban Meyer, and he looked really good last year, was like a generational Andrew Luck like talent. So if he can make another big step, I like those long shot odds. So Bills 49ers is my actual pick with the Bills coming out on top, and the Jags is my long shot as well.
All right, let me guess Ryan's Super Bowl. The Cowboys and the Steelers.
Oh, yeah, right. Everyone knows I would never pick the Cowboys. I wouldn't even pick them to – I'd never even draft any Cowboys players in my fantasy teams, no matter who it is or what the value is. So,
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'm going with the Eagles and Bills. I get Dave's logic, but the Bengals last year were one drive away from losing the Super Bowl and going back. I mean, it was really, really close. So I don't know. I mean, the Eagles have an easy start to their schedule. They say a lot of people start slow out of the gates, but the Eagles have an easy start and then it gets tougher. So I think they could get their footing together in the beginning. And the NFC is just so weak. I mean, the 49ers, I guess it's possible, but I just hate the 49ers and I don't think they're going to be good. I really don't. And I hate the Cowboys. They're not going to be any good. They always choke. So who else is going to come out of the NFC? I mean, Jared Goff, you get a different Jared Goff every season. Yeah, he was good last year. Yeah, right. But anyways, yeah, I like the Bills for the same reasons Dave kind of touched on. Everyone's probably given up on them at this point, but they still have a lot of talent, and I don't think they're going anywhere. So I'm going to pick the Eagles to win. So they're, I'm sure, not going to, but we'll see. And I'll do a different long shot here. I thought about the
Why
Jags.
did you write down the Jaguars too?
No, I thought about them.
But
I'm going to go with the Seahawks at 30-1.
I thought about them too.
Geno Smith, I don't think ever has the firepower to do it, but they do have a lot of offensive talent. Pete Carroll's done it before. Their defense has some good young pieces, and they're coming out of a weak division like we talked about, in a weak NFC in general. So you never know. They might get some home playoff games up in, Washington there, maybe some rainy, crappy games or something. They sneak. Well, I don't know. Super Bowl long shots are very hard to predict, but I guess it's worth a shot at 30-1.
I think also the last, maybe since like 2010 or something, like teams that won the Super Bowl, like preseason odds are like before week one, like the worst team was like 12 or 15-1. So take these long shots with a grain of salt. I mean, the Bengals, I know they didn't win, but the Bengals winning the AFC even probably was like more than 15-1 at that point. So take it with a grain of salt. But anyway, Dave, what were you saying?
No, I like how none of us had the Chiefs. I will say, if they get back and if they win it again, like, I'm willing to concede. Like, I know it's still early in his career and he won't have as many as Brady, but if he gets back and does it again, like, I'm just going to throw up my hands and be like, he's the best. Because I don't even really understand with that roster how they got back last year. Their defense isn't great. They just, like, when Tyreek Hill left, I thought there's no way. I know Travis Kelce's there. He's getting older. The Chargers should be a lot healthier and better to challenge them. So I like how none of us picked the Chiefs. I think a lot of people are fatigued with the Chiefs, but I will note, if they do it again, like, I am willing to concede, like, Mahomes is just the greatest.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a fun season ahead for sure. And I'm with you. I hope it's not the Chiefs that make it, but it would not surprise me in the least. So that, guys, we'll be right back and we'll get your show best bets. You have been listening to Season 3 of the Rudy G Bets Inside the Lines podcast. We'll be right back after this with our show best bets. All right, guys, and we are back to close out the first episode of season 3 of the NFL season ahead. Our show Best Bets. Rye, we'll start with you. What do you got?
So last year on one of our preseason shows, I mentioned Dallas Goedert. I liked his reception total, and ultimately he didn't get there. He was a few short because he missed 5 games. But this year I'm going back to Dallas Goedert, and I'm going over 3.5 touchdowns. He had 3 last year, despite the fact that he missed 5 games. And he actually had 55 receptions in those 12 games, which was almost his career high. His career high was 58, and that was in a season when he played 16 games. Jalen Hurts likes to target him, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are going to get a lot of attention from defenses, especially in the red zone and whatnot. So to only ask 4 touchdowns from Dallas Goedert, I don't think that's asking a lot. He was routinely getting 4, 5, 6 receptions a game in the games that he played. And the Eagles' offense has a lot of opportunities in the red zone. They did last year, so I really like Dallas Goedert over 3.5 touchdowns. That is my best bet, -120.
Okay, Ryan going with Goddard again. Dave, how about you? Show best bet.
So I teased it with the Steelers when I talked about them, but my best bet is going to be +125 for the Steelers to make the playoffs. Expanded playoffs, so 7 teams get in. And they went 9-8 last year. I think if TJ Watt's healthy the whole season, I think if Kenny Pickett improves, they have an easier schedule, like I mentioned. So should they, barring any major collapse or injury, and again, they don't go under 500. So if they're going to be over 500, I think they're going to be significantly better. I think that gets them in this year. So +125 to be one of the 7 playoff teams in the AFC.
All right, we got Eagles and Steelers fans going with the Eagles and Steelers bets, and I can't say that I'm going to break the trend here. My show best bet. I think it might be a DraftKings special, but basically everyone has DraftKings. And if you want this bet, you could definitely find it there. So my best bet to start out the season is going to be the Panthers to have more wins than the Bucks, -150 on DraftKings. I love this bet. I think this should be like -300 or something. I think the Bucks could easily be one of the worst teams in the league. They're going to have Baker and Kyle Trask and a shaky offensive line. I don't think I need to say more. Also, there's a lot of rumors that if the Bucks get off to a slow start, like a lot of people think, they could have a fire sale like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Devin White. Some of those guys could potentially be on the move, and that would really make me feel like this is a slam dunk home run bet. Also, yeah, I just think the Panthers are pretty much better everywhere. Like coaching staff, it's not close. Todd Bowles is a terrible head coach. And I think even rookie Bryce Young is going to do better than Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. The Panthers, I know like Dave said, the offensive line didn't look good in the preseason, but Frank Reich said even before the preseason started that the Panthers were just going to show them absolutely nothing. They didn't even play Laviska Shenault, who's supposed to be like their Debo role this year. Terrace Marshall and DJ Chark were held out for like minor injuries. All 3 of those guys are back at practice. I think the Panthers have a really good potential to be a very good defense. Definitely, I think potential with top 10. Maybe even a little bit better if Brian Burns continues his ascension, J.C. Horn stays healthy, some of those other things. Derek Brown takes the next step. And like I said, I have Carolina winning the division and the Bucks in last, so kind of makes sense from that standpoint alone. So -150, Panthers to have more wins than the Bucks on DraftKings. That will be my show best bet. And now to close out our very first episode of season 3. As if you guys remember and you're listening, you're a return listener from last season. Dave, the king of closing remarks, what do you got for us?
I don't think I have anything too extreme for week 1. I might have to ease into it. But have you guys been watching any of Hard Knocks? Have you seen any?
Here and there, yeah. I've watched some episodes, but I just can't do it. It's like the Aaron Rodgers special. Like, it's not even really about the Jets. It's just too much. I can't do it.
I have not, but I did watch that quarterback show.
Yeah, my take's not so much on Aaron Rodgers, but Nathaniel Hackett might be the corniest dude of all time. And watch him in this they're cutting even like cornier stuff out. Like he is just an absolute cheeseball. And it makes me think back to like, can you believe that the Broncos had him as a head coach and Russell Wilson doing the let's ride. Like, the Broncos, all their players who stayed should be back player of the year for having to endure a season. Like, seriously, the people who watch Hard Knocks will know, like, maybe the two corniest dudes in the NFL who are leading your team really in head coach and quarterback. I'm surprised there wasn't a mutiny after like seeing a little bit of this. And I know what Sean Payton, like, he broke NFL coach code. You don't do that to another coach. I get he's probably hedging a little bit. Like, if we suck, it's not really my fault. But like, I don't think he's that bright. Like, I could see like how he did a really bad job with the Broncos. I mean, they fired him before the season ended in his first year. Like, that's very bad and unheard of. So,
well, yeah, I think the writing was on the wall. Literally, game 1 versus the Seahawks. That was a disaster coaching. That's like coaching 101. Just watch that of Nathaniel Hackett and the Broncos. That's like coaching 101 of now.
Yeah. He's like obsessed with Goldmember, the movie. He calls the red zone the gold zone. Like, it's I can't watch when he comes on the screen. I can't imagine being on a football team where that's your head coach and Russell Wilson's your quarterback and surviving the season. Like, the Broncos survived, anyone who's still there. So big props to them.
Hey, Dave just going at the Broncos and the Jets. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add here. I'm just excited to get back to it, and already looked at some of the lines for week 1. I know that's going to be our next show, so I do have some thoughts. I'd like to see a couple lines move, in some different ways from now until then. But there's still about a week and a half till it starts. So. Yeah, looking forward to that, and just excited for football. Really, that's it.
Yeah, for my closing remarks, I'll just give you guys a couple of bets that I have from this Thursday, meeting tomorrow, and then also Saturday. Just figure I'd give you guys 3 here for Thursday. Tomorrow night, college football. We got a couple games on tap. I like Minnesota and Utah moneyline parlay. That was plus 102 on FanDuel when I took those notes. Not really going to get into it too much, but Matt Rule's first game coaching Nebraska. I mean, you see the hat. Do I need to say more? And then for UFC on Saturday, I like Benoit Saint Denis parlayed with Morgan Shirey, plus 120 for that 2-fighter parlay on FanDuel. And also another plus 120 in the main event is Cyril Gane by knockout. So give you guys those 3, hopefully 3-0. I think we will be 3-0 on those. And we'll get the ball rolling here, guys, for NFL again. Next Wednesday, we will have our show for week 1, start getting into the nitty-gritty of some ranked matchups in college. NFL season starting off the very next day with the Chiefs and the Lions. So with that, guys, we hope you enjoyed our first episode of Season 3 for the NFL season. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.